The fluorescent lights of the Earth Space Command Station flickered overhead, casting an artificial glow on the gathering of explorers. I stood at the helm of the sleek conference room, my heart racing with a mixture of excitement and dread as I surveyed my crew. We were about to embark on an expedition into the infamous void expanse, a region of space that had swallowed countless ships and their crews whole. The stakes couldn't be higher, and I could feel the weight of that responsibility pressing down on me. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady despite the rapid beating of my heart. "We are on the brink of uncovering secrets that could change our understanding of the universe. The void expanse has long been a mystery, a treacherous desert of stars that has repelled even the most intrepid explorers. But we have a chance to turn the tide." Dr. Lydia Harper, a brilliant scientist with fire-red hair and bright green eyes, stood up from her seat, her expression a blend of enthusiasm and caution. "Captain Cole, while I appreciate your optimism, we cannot ignore the data we've collected. The anomalies detected just beyond the void are unlike anything we've ever encountered. They could be dangerous, more than we can predict." I nodded, acknowledging her valid concerns. "I understand, Lydia. But what if those anomalies hold the key to new technology or even new life forms? We owe it to ourselves, and to those lost in the void, to find out." Jack Stratton, our seasoned pilot with a reputation for being a skeptic, leaned forward, crossing his arms. "Ethan, you're talking about the very thing that's wiped out entire crews. This isn't some adventure, it's a death sentence. You're willing to gamble our lives on the possibility of discovery." His words hung in the air, thick with tension. "It's not a gamble if we're prepared," I countered, my voice rising slightly. "We have the best team for this mission. Lydia's research, Mia's engineering skills, and your experience, Jack. Together, we can navigate the dangers." Mia Wu, our enigmatic engineer, remained silent, her dark eyes focused on her tablet as she reviewed the ship's schematics. I could sense her internal struggle. She had her reasons for wanting to venture into the void, but I could see the shadows of her past flickering behind her calm facade. "Jack," Lydia interjected, her tone softening, "we can't let fear dictate our actions. Every great discovery comes with risks. We have to honor those who came before us and seek the truth." Jack sighed, his skepticism giving way to grudging respect for Lydia's passion. "I get it. But if we go in there, we need to know what we're getting ourselves into. We can't afford to make mistakes." I felt a surge of determination. "Then let's prepare, and let's prepare well. We'll run simulations, test our systems, and gather every bit of intel we can before we set foot in the void." As the meeting drew to a close, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing at the edge of something monumental. The crew dispersed, but I lingered for a moment, gazing out the window at the stars beyond. They were beautiful, but I knew they concealed dangers that could consume us whole. A few hours later we gathered in the hangar bay, a sleek ship named the Starfire waiting for us, its metallic surface gleaming under the harsh lights. Mia was already inside, her fingers dancing over the control panels as she performed final checks. I approached her, sensing an emotional weight in her demeanor. "Mia," I said gently, "are you ready for this?" She looked up, her expression unreadable. "Ready as I'll ever be, I suppose. Just hoping we don't end up like the last crew." Her words struck me like a physical blow, and I felt a pang of guilt. The crew she referenced had been lost in the void, their fate a haunting shadow over this mission. "We'll do everything we can to avoid that," I promised her, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. The atmosphere thickened as we gathered for our final briefing. I could see the determination in Lydia's eyes, the lingering doubts in Jack's stance, and the quiet resolve in Mia's movements. We were a team, bound by a shared mission, yet each of us carried our own fears and motivations into the unknown. "Let's make history," I said, my voice steady. "Together." As we boarded the Starfire, I felt the weight of my crew's hopes and fears pressing down on me. We were about to embark on a journey that would test not only our skills but also our very souls. The engines roared to life, and as we prepared for takeoff, I glanced back one last time at Earth, the world we were leaving behind, unaware of the challenges and revelations that awaited us in the void expanse. As the Starfire plunged into the void expanse, an eerie silence enveloped us, interrupted only by the low hum of the ship's engines. I gripped the armrest of my seat tighter, my heart racing as the surrounding darkness seemed to consume us. The view screen flickered, every now and then, revealing fleeting glimpses of swirling colors and distorted shapes. It was as if the universe itself was attempting to communicate in a language I couldn't decipher. "Hold on, everyone." Captain Ethan Cole's voice broke through the tension, a steady anchor amidst the chaos. "We're entering the expanse. Keep your eyes on your instruments and report any anomalies." I glanced at Dr. Lydia Harper, her eyes wide as she studied her instruments with fervor. "Ethan, I'm detecting gravity shifts. It's fluctuating wildly. Adjust the stabilizers, Mia." Jack Stratton shouted from the pilot's seat, his hands flying over the controls. I could see the tension in his shoulders, knotted and tense. Jack had always been the skeptic, but here in this swirling abyss, his doubts were palpable. "I'm on it," I replied, my fingers dancing over the control panel, adjusting the settings in real time. The ship shuddered violently, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This isn't normal. We shouldn't be experiencing this level of distortion. "Do you think it's a defense mechanism?" Lydia asked, her voice edged with anxiety. "What if the void is trying to keep us out?" "Or lure us in," Jack countered, his skepticism morphing into something darker. "We need to stay focused. We can't let fear dictate our actions." The ship rocked again, sending me sprawling against the wall. I regained my footing, heart pounding. "We need to stabilize the ship first before we can think about anything else." "Ethan, the readings are off the charts," Lydia shouted, eyes glued to her screen. "This isn't just turbulence. It feels alive." "Alive," Jack scoffed, though I caught a hint of fear in his voice. "That's a bit dramatic, don't you think?" "Dramatic or not, we need to take it seriously," I interjected, my frustration boiling over. "We can't underestimate what we're dealing with here. The anomalies could be more than just gravitational fluctuations." Suddenly, the ship lurched again, but this time it felt different, more like a pulse, a rhythmic thumping that resonated through the hull. "What the hell was that?" Jack exclaimed, his grip tightening on the controls. I think it's a signal," Lydia said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's calling to us." "A signal?" Jack raised an eyebrow, skepticism returning to his features. "How can you be sure?" "I'm picking up a pattern in the data. It's not random." Lydia's eyes sparkled with a mix of fear and excitement. "If it's a signal, it could indicate intelligent life." "Or a trap," Jack interrupted, his tone sharp. "We don't know what's out there. We could be walking straight into the jaws of something we can't even comprehend." Ethan straightened, his authoritative presence filling the cockpit. "We need to make a decision. Do we follow the signal, or do we turn back?" I felt a surge of emotion, a mix of curiosity and dread. We came here to explore, to uncover the secrets of the void. Turning back feels wrong. Jack shot me a challenging look. "And what if that exploration leads to our deaths? Are you willing to risk our lives for some unknown signal?" Before I could respond, the ship suddenly lurched wildly, throwing us all into chaos. Alarms blared, and I struggled to stabilize my grip on the console. "What's happening?" I shouted, my heart racing as the ship shook violently. "Hold on," Jack yelled, fighting against the controls. "Everyone, brace for impact." The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the cockpit as we were tossed like rag dolls. I locked eyes with Lydia, who was gripping her seat with white knuckles, and I knew that whatever lay ahead, we were in it together. The void expanse was alive, and it had just revealed its first hint of danger. As the ship steadied for a moment, I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. "Ethan, we have to choose quickly. Follow the signal or try to stabilize and get out of here." "Follow the signal," Ethan decided, his voice resolute despite the fear that flickered in his eyes. "Let's see where it leads us." I felt a chill run down my spine, but there was no turning back now. We were committed to our fate. The void expanse was not just a desert of stars, it was a labyrinth of uncertainty, and we were about to venture deeper into its heart. As the starfire stabilized, a heavy silence enveloped the crew. I looked around at my comrades, all of us still reeling from the violent upheaval that had just thrown us into chaos. But as the ship's systems beeped steadily, I could sense that something deeper was wrong. The familiar hum of the engines felt different, almost like a whispering echo of the past. "Captain Weir," Jack began, but I raised a hand to silence him. I could feel it too, that strange sensation, like a ripple in the fabric of time itself. "Lydia, do you feel that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded slowly, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like we're stuck. I can't explain it, but the readings are off the charts." As we exchanged concerned glances, I couldn't shake the feeling of déjà vu creeping over me. Suddenly, the ship's intercom crackled to life, and I jumped. "Starfire here," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. It's happening again," Lydia murmured, her eyes wide with fear. "The anomalies, they're not just external. They're feeding off us, our memories." "Memories?" Jack echoed, his skepticism beginning to falter. "What do you mean?" Before she could respond, the ship lurched again, and I stumbled, catching myself against the console. "What now?" I demanded, my heart racing. "Look!" Mia shouted, pointing at the view screen. The space beyond was swirling, images flashing, snippets of our pasts, moments long buried. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized my own face, older, filled with despair, as I watched myself argue with my father, desperate for his approval. "Ethan," Jack's voice was gravelly. "Is that you?" "Yes, it is." I snapped, frustration boiling over. "But we need to focus on what's happening here." "Focus," he shot back. "We're reliving our worst moments. This is a nightmare." "Jack, this is more than just a nightmare," Lydia insisted, her voice rising. "These aren't just echoes. They're manifestations of our regrets, our fears. The void is using them against us." "What do you mean?" Jack's face twisted in confusion. "Every time we've failed, every guilt we carry, it's all here," Lydia explained, her voice trembling slightly. "The void is making us face our demons." I glanced at Mia, who looked haunted as she watched the scenes unfold. "What about you, Mia? What do you see?" She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I see my brother. The last time I saw him before he disappeared into the void. I didn't even say goodbye." A heavy silence fell over us, and I felt the weight of our shared pain. "We can't let this consume us," I said, my voice firm. "We have to confront it. Acknowledge it. Only then can we break free." Jack shook his head, incredulous. "You want us to accept our failures? To embrace this hell?" "It's the only way, Jack," I replied, my heart racing. "We'll drown in our regrets if we don't. We need to face our pasts, together." "I refuse to go down like this," he growled, fists clenched, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Then you'll be trapped here forever," Lydia said softly. "The void thrives on our fear and denial." As Jack wrestled with his emotions, the ship shook again, pulling us from our thoughts. "Hold on!" I shouted, gripping the console. But I could feel the tug of the memories, the weight of our pasts threatening to pull us under. "Ethan," Jack began, but before he could finish, the ship lurched violently, throwing us all to the floor. "Get up," I urged, fighting against the chaos. "We can't let it win." With determination, I scrambled to my feet and reached for the controls. "Lydia, help me recalibrate the navigational systems. We need to focus on breaking this loop." She nodded, her resolve hardening as she joined me at the console. "Let's do this." As we worked together, I could feel the weight of our memories pressing against us, but I refused to let it drown us. In that moment, I remembered my father's disappointed gaze, but I also recalled the strength I had gained from overcoming it. I wasn't defined by my past, I was shaped by it. The ship trembled again, but the energy that surrounded us felt different this time. The pull of the memories began to loosen, and light pierced through the darkness. "We're breaking free," I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. "Hold on," Jack yelled, and I felt the urgency in his voice as we fought against the void's grasp. With one final push, the ship surged forward, and the memories began to fade. As the chaos subsided and clarity returned, I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of our collective burdens lift. But as I looked around, I realized we were deeper in the void than ever before, and another signal pulsed around us, a stronger, more insistent call. As I stared at the readings, I felt a mix of dread and curiosity. What awaited us next? The moment we stepped aboard the derelict ship, an eerie silence enveloped us, broken only by the faint hum of dormant systems stirring to life around us. The air was thick with dust, and I could feel the weight of history pressing down on my chest. My heart raced with a mix of trepidation and exhilaration. I glanced at Mia, standing at the threshold, her eyes wide as she absorbed the sight before her. It was as if the ship were whispering her name. I could see it in the way she hesitated, fingers twitching slightly as if yearning to reach out and touch its surfaces. "Are you okay?" I asked, breaking the silence. My voice echoed oddly in the stillness. She turned to me, her expression a blend of wonder and fear. I don't know. It feels like it's calling me." Jack, ever the pragmatist, scoffed lightly. "It's just a hunk of metal, Mia. We need to focus on finding data logs or anything that could help us understand what happened here." Lydia stepped forward, her curiosity piqued. "No, wait. Let her explore. We're not in immediate danger. The technology here could be advanced, maybe even beyond what we know." Her tone was softer, almost reverent, as she regarded the ship. We began our exploration in earnest, moving deeper into the corridors that twisted like the roots of a long-forgotten tree. The walls were lined with intricate carvings, their meanings lost to time. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were intruding on something sacred. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I traced my fingers across one of the engravings. It depicted a thriving civilization, full of life and vibrancy, a stark contrast to the desolation surrounding us now. Mia lingered near the ship's control panel, her hands hovering just above the console. "This tech, it's unlike anything I've seen. It's almost organic." Her voice was a hushed whisper, as if speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile connection we were forging with this ancient vessel. "Let's not get too comfortable," Jack interjected, pulling us back to reality. "We should be cautious. Look what happened to this civilization." He gestured towards the logs we had discovered, detailing their rise and tragic fall, their insatiable hunger for expansion leading them straight into calamity. My gaze fell on the flickering holographic images emanating from a nearby terminal. As we activated it, a cascade of information flooded the air, illuminating our faces with an otherworldly glow. The logs painted a vivid picture, tales of technological marvels, but also of pride and hubris that ultimately led to their ruin. The warnings within the logs were palpable, echoing the same fears we had expressed back on our ship. "Do you think we're repeating their mistakes?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We're here seeking knowledge, but what if we're just as reckless?" Lydia looked at me, her brow furrowed with concern. "We need to tread carefully. Knowledge is power, but it can also be a double-edged sword." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently, and the lights flickered ominously. A low rumble reverberated through the walls, and I felt my heart racing. "What's happening?" I shouted, instinctively reaching for the nearest support as the ground beneath us trembled. "Stay calm." Jack barked, his pilot instincts kicking in. "We need to find out what's activating the systems. It could be a defense mechanism or a warning protocol." As we rushed through the corridors, the atmosphere thickened, charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. The walls seemed to pulse, almost alive, as if the ship itself were aware of our presence. Mia, who had fallen slightly behind, suddenly stopped in her tracks, her eyes wide with realization. "It's not just a ship," she said, her voice trembling. "It's a relic of their civilization, an archive of their knowledge and their mistakes. It's warning us." Before I could respond, the ship's systems blared to life, and a holographic projection materialized before us. The figure was humanoid but ethereal, its features indistinct, shrouded in a veil of light. It raised an arm, and a holographic message began to play, echoing throughout the chamber. "Leave the void," the figure intoned, its voice resonating with a sense of urgency. "You must leave before it consumes you as it did us." We exchanged glances, the weight of the warning settling over us like a heavy blanket. Jack clenched his fists, visibly torn. "But what if we can learn something that could save us? Or doom us?" Lydia countered, her eyes searching each of our faces for agreement. I felt a chill creep down my spine. The allure of knowledge was intoxicating, but the stakes were higher than we had anticipated. The room was thick with tension, each of us grappling with our desires for discovery against the very real possibility of peril. As the holographic figure continued its ominous warning, I couldn't shake the feeling that our fates were already intertwined with the fate of this lost civilization, teetering on the edge of a precipice we might not be able to escape. As we descended deeper into the derelict ship, the air grew thick with a haunting silence, broken only by the distant hum of machines that had long since forgotten their purpose. The control room loomed ahead, a chamber shrouded in shadows and illuminated by flickering lights that cast eerie patterns on our faces. My heart raced as I stepped through the threshold, the weight of our decision hanging heavily in the air. Are we really doing this? I heard Jack's voice tremble as he surveyed the room. This place is a tomb. We shouldn't be here. Not a tomb, Jack, I replied, my voice steady despite the tension. It's a treasure trove of knowledge. We can't turn back now. My eyes roamed over the high-tech panels, covered in dust and neglect, yet waiting for our touch to awaken them. Lydia moved toward the central console, her fingers brushing over the controls. Look at this, she breathed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. These readings, they're unlike anything I've ever seen. This technology could rewrite everything we know about the void. I could see the thrill in her eyes, but beneath that excitement was a flicker of apprehension. We're not just here to collect data, Lydia. We need to be cautious. We don't fully understand what we're dealing with. Suddenly, the room shuddered around us, the lights flickering violently. What the hell was that? Jack shouted, grabbing onto the edge of a console for balance. It's the void, Mia said, her voice a whisper as she stepped forward, her eyes wide with a strange mix of fear and fascination. It's alive. I can feel it. Before anyone could respond, the console before Lydia sprang to life, displaying a cascade of images, ships lost to the void, their crews absorbed into the fabric of the universe. I stepped closer, the images sending chills down my spine. What is this? It's a record, Lydia said, her voice trembling with awe. It's showing us the souls that have been consumed, the energies that feed this place. Jack's brow furrowed. It's feeding off us? Off our fears? No, I interjected, feeling a sense of urgency. This isn't just about us. The void is a sentient entity. It has consciousness. It's been waiting for us to arrive. As the realization settled over us, a low rumble echoed through the control room, vibrating through the floor and into our bones. We need to leave, Jack urged, panic rising in his voice. This is wrong. We shouldn't have ignored the warning. But before I could respond, an image flashed across the screen, an ancient ship, much like ours, caught in a spiraling vortex, struggling against an unseen force. The crew aboard it, faces twisted in terror, reached out for something that was no longer there. I can't leave now, Lydia said, her gaze locked on the screen. We can't turn our backs on this. We came here for answers, and we've found them. I felt torn, my instincts screaming at me to flee, but a part of me was entranced by the knowledge that lay before us. Lydia, we can't risk our lives for information. We need to think clearly. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and the console blared an alarm, a piercing sound that cut through the tension. It's happening. Mia shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. The void is reacting to us being here. The room shook violently, and I stumbled, grasping at the console to steady myself. We have to go now. Jack yelled, urgency lacing his every word. But it was too late. The control room erupted in a blinding light, and I felt an invisible force pulling at me, tugging me toward the screen. Hold on. I shouted, reaching for Lydia and Jack, who were already grappling with the chaos around us. This is it. Lydia cried, her eyes wide with fear and determination. We've uncovered its secrets, but now we have to escape. As the walls began to warp and fold around us, I felt a surge of panic. The void was alive, and it was angry. We need to find a way out. I shouted, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Over there. Mia pointed to an emergency exit on the far wall, but the room was collapsing, the very fabric of space and time unraveling around us. Go now. I urged, shoving Jack forward. We can't let it take us. With every ounce of strength, we sprinted toward the exit, the void's wrath echoing in our ears. The room convulsed, the air crackling with energy, and as I glanced back, I saw the control panel flicker ominously, a reminder of the knowledge we had sought but could never possess. Keep moving. I yelled, pushing past the fear that threatened to engulf us, desperate to escape the clutches of the void before it consumed us whole. The air inside the Starfire grew thick with uncertainty as we hovered on the precipice of the void's true nature. I stood at the bridge, my heart pounding in my chest, watching the swirling energy coalesce into a monstrous form before us. It was as if the void itself had taken shape, a titanic being of shimmering light and shadow, pulsating with an otherworldly rhythm. My breath hitched as I registered its presence. It was a force that both terrified and mesmerized me. "Ethan," Lydia whispered beside me, her voice trembling. "What do we do?" She trailed off, unable to articulate the enormity of what we were facing. "Stay calm," I replied, though my own voice felt distant, as if coming from another world. "We need to understand what it wants." The energy shifted, and I felt a pull, an invitation, almost seductive in its allure. The entity's voice echoed in our minds, deep and resonant. "You stand at the crossroads of knowledge and survival. Choose wisely." The words enveloped us, vibrating through our very beings. "What does that even mean?" Jack said, crossing his arms defensively. His skepticism was a thin veil over his growing anxiety. "We can't trust it." "Wait," Mia interjected, stepping closer to the entity, her eyes wide with fascination. "This is incredible. We could learn so much." Her voice was almost a whisper, infused with longing. I could see the conflict within her. She was being drawn in, the scientist yearning to unlock the universe's secrets. "Don't," I warned, reaching out to grab her arm. "We don't know what it's capable of." Yet, even as I said it, I could feel the gravity of the choice weighing on all of us. Knowledge was a siren song, and I could see that some of my crew were tempted to heed its call. Jack's expression darkened. "Mia, think about what it's asking. It's a bargain with something we can't begin to understand." "I know," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "But what if this is our chance to truly understand the void? We could be the first to unlock its mysteries." There was a fire in her eyes, one that I had seen before but never quite like this. "Don't let your curiosity cloud your judgment," Jack shouted, frustration boiling over. "We're not here to make deals with monsters." In that moment, the void shifted again, and the entity's form rippled ominously. "Time is fleeting. The choice must be made." Mia took a step forward, her resolve hardening. "I can't walk away from this. It's the chance of a lifetime." "No," I shouted, feeling the panic rise within me. "Mia, don't. You don't have to do this." But it was too late. She reached out, her hand extending toward the luminous mass, and in an instant, the energy surged forward, enveloping her in a blinding light. "Mia!" I screamed, but her figure was swallowed whole. The air crackled with energy, and I felt Jack's hand grip my shoulder, anchoring me to the moment. "What have we done?" he breathed, horror etched across his features. "Nothing," I whispered, numbness creeping into my veins. There was nothing we could do now. As the light receded, the entity turned its gaze upon us, and I was filled with a profound sense of loss. "Knowledge has been claimed," it intoned, "but you remain." Jack's eyes were fierce, filled with determination and regret. "We have to escape," he said, his voice low and steady. "We can't let it take any more of us." With newfound urgency, we navigated the ship's controls, desperate to break free from the void's grasp. The ship shook violently as the entity reacted to our defiance, the walls reverberating with its wrath. "Hold on!" I shouted, gripping the console as the Starfire was tossed around like a leaf in a storm. Finally, as if the void realized it could not keep us, a rift opened before us, a shimmering portal leading out of the chaos. "Go! Now!" Jack urged, pushing us forward with a force of will. We surged through the rift, emerging into the familiar vastness of space, the void fading into the distance. Silence enveloped us, but it was a silence marked by the weight of what we had lost. As we drifted back toward Earth, I felt the emptiness inside me grow. We had escaped, but at what cost? Mia was gone, and with her, a part of our hope had vanished into the abyss. "We'll never understand it now," Lydia said quietly, her eyes glistening with tears. "No," I replied, my voice heavy with grief. "But we'll carry her memory with us." We were forever changed, haunted not just by our journey but by the choices we had made. The void had taken more than just a crew member. It had taken our dreams, our aspirations, and left us with an ache that would linger long after we returned home.